Hi everyone, welcome to determine the right measurement approach. Today, we'll cover some of the basics of marketing science. We designed this training to help you prepare for the marketing science certification exam. My name is Rafael. I'm a business education partner at Facebook on the Blueprint team, and it's a pleasure to bring this to you today. This session has 3 sections. Formulate a hypothesis, determine the measurement approach, and design a test. In our last session, we explained how to analyze the methods your clients currently employ to measure their marketing efforts. We discussed how to establish a SMART goal and KPIs, as well as data sources and the basics of data manipulation and analysis. We then concluded with a brief overview of Facebook measurement solutions. In this session today, we build on that. We first explain how to formulate a hypothesis. Then we discuss how to determine a measurement approach that suits the needs of each of your clients. Lastly, we designed a test to prove or disprove your test hypothesis. Let's begin with our first section where we discuss how you can formulate a hypothesis based on your business goal. We also discuss how to identify the dependent and independent variables to include in your test or analysis. A hypothesis is an idea or explanation that you can test through study or experimentation. Without a well-formed hypothesis, any experiment or data analysis would lack the necessary guidelines to be useful and actionable. Your hypothesis should relate to your primary business goal. The more data or insights you have available, the stronger your hypothesis will be. A strong hypothesis answers the questions of who, what, where, when, and why. In media measurement, this would be who, the audience, what, the behavior of the audience, where, the location, when, an ad schedule, and why, the rationale for the anticipated audience behavior or perspective. There are typically 3 steps to form a strong hypothesis. Start with a basic one, then build on it until you have a good one. Then build further until your hypothesis is strong. Let's explore this with an example from Axion Electronics, a fictional company. Axion is a medium-sized international electronics manufacturer with a corporate office in London. Axion makes televisions and other home entertainment devices. Its patent TV technology is arguably the best in the market. But the price point is high and awareness is low. Likewise, other manufacturers with great resources disrupt consumers' consideration with inferior features that they market as premium and state-of-the-art. Axion offers a revolutionary TV with this technology, and their business goal is to increase its sales by 20% by the end of the second quarter. They believe their primary audience for this campaign is male home theater enthusiasts who live in the UK. A basic hypothesis includes who and what. Let's create it from an assumption and perhaps a few data points. In this case, the Axion team believes men ages 24 to 45 are more likely to respond to their ad. A good hypothesis builds on this and adds where and when. In this case, it's men ages 24 to 45 in the UK are more likely to respond to our promotional ad in the second quarter. A strong hypothesis includes why, which is the rationale for the anticipated audience behavior or perspective. Men ages 24 to 45 in the UK are more likely to respond to our second quarter promotional sale ad because our creative highlights the smart features of the product. When you have a strong hypothesis, you can develop your test hypothesis. A test hypothesis is typically an if/then statement, and it considers how a change in a variable can influence an outcome. While a hypothesis could be a subjective assumption, a test hypothesis includes a null and an alternative hypothesis. The objective is to test if you can reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative. To formulate your test hypothesis, choose a variable to test. In other words, isolate the independent variable and dependent variable that your test will feature. The independent variable should have a meaningful effect on the dependent variable. Some examples of independent variables are audience, creative, placement, delivery optimizations, ad structure, budget, or campaign objectives. The dependent variable, or the outcome variable, should align most closely with your business goal. That way, your outcomes are more likely give you the most relevant useful information. Examples of dependent variables could be sales, ad recall, click-through rate, cost per incremental click, leads, or app installs. Here is another visual to help you conceptualize the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. It uses a very simple example to help illustrate the idea. In this case, the independent variable is the audience and the dependent variable is sales. We can see here that ads target to audience A lead to more sales than ads target to audience B. Let's see another example from Axion. Now that Axion has their strong hypothesis, the marketing team wants to further test their theory. To do this, they first develop their test hypothesis, which states that video creative that highlights its sports leads to more sales than general brand video creative. In this case, the independent variable in this test is the creative and the dependent variable is the sales. Now that they have their test hypothesis, the team can recommend a measurement approach to prove or disprove this hypothesis. Let's answer 2 exam practice questions before we continue. First, a TV advertiser needs to attract more sports fans to watch their upcoming live events. According to a global index survey, 90% of sports fans online reported that they use another device while they watch TV. More than 50% of sports fans reported that their top activities are using social media and chatting with friends. To maximize ad reach, which hypothesis should the advertiser test? Here are the options. Option A, the placement of ads on popular social media platforms is the most cost-efficient way to generate conversions. B. The placement of ads on top sports channels is the most cost-efficient way to generate reach. C. Messaging apps provide incremental conversions. D. Social media platforms provide incremental reach to TV. The correct answer is social media platforms provide incremental reach to TV. The goal is to attract a larger audience, so we should consider incremental reach. If you pick D, congratulations. For the second one, the marketing team for a luxury car company wants to measure the effectiveness of their investment in campaigns across both Facebook and Instagram during the holidays. They have multiple audiences across 5 major markets that they want to reach. These markets are defined by zip code or geographic location. The team wants to understand which major market generates the most incremental sales so they can better allocate budget across markets after the test. Which variable should they test? Option A, the audience. B, placement. Or C, location. If you pick C, it's correct. Congratulations. The location, it is the variable which they should test. Our next session is determine the measurement approach. With a test hypothesis in place, your next step is to determine the measurement approach that addresses your hypothesis. It's also important to understand the limitations of each measurement approach. There are many measurement approaches you can use to prove or disprove your hypothesis. In this session, we don't go into each in detail, but it's a worthwhile exercise to go through some key ones that Axiom used last year. Axiom used different measurement approaches to solve different business challenges and test different hypotheses. Some are Facebook solutions, while others are not. We'll cover each of these measurement approaches at a high level and then ask you to tell us which approach Axiom used to solve different business challenges last year. Specifically, we'll cover cross-channel reach reporting, marketing mix modeling, and 3 tests Axiom used: A/B test, brand lift, and conversion lift. Let's look at our first measurement approach, cross-channel reach reporting. Cross-channel reach reporting measures how different channels work together to generate business outcomes. Channels include, but are not limited to, email, TV, direct mail, Facebook, and paid search. There are some limitations to cross-channel reach reporting. First, metrics can often vary by channel. Additionally, not all channels share reach data, so it can be difficult to get accurate results. Lastly, reach reporting doesn't necessarily correlate with brand or conversion business outcomes. Let's talk about marketing mix modeling. Marketing mix modeling, also called MMM or media mix modeling, is a data-driven statistical analysis that quantifies the incremental sales impact and return on investment of marketing activities. It's an established solution for holistic cross-channel sales measurement both online and offline. Marketing mix modeling isolates the impact of marketing and non-marketing factors on a KPI with statistical models. As a result, you can quantify the incremental impact of your media investment on sales, both online and offline. Once you have this information, you can calculate key metrics like return on investment or cost per outcome. Non-marketing factors tend to vary by vertical and include such things as price, promotion, distribution, and seasonality. In this example output, we can visually see the incremental impact of distribution, search, TV, and Facebook on sales. Our base in red is the amount of sales we would have achieved if these factors were at their minimum. Marketing mix modeling doesn't just report return on investment or cost per outcome. You can use the model output to plan different scenarios and perform forward-looking simulations and optimizations and make informed strategic decisions. Here are a few examples of questions MMM can help you answer. How much did my online advertising increase my performance versus my offline advertising? What's the optimal allocation of budget spent across different media channels? Should we raise our prices? Do promotions increase incremental business value? Marketing mix modeling is a mathematical equation that shows the statistical relationship between variables and a KPI. At a high level, the equation looks like this. Your key performance indicator at the time you want to model, it's equal to the base performance, or what performance would be if all other factors were at their minimum, plus the coefficients. The coefficients are what the change in the variable means for the KPI. In other words, the coefficients in the equation shows what a change in each variable means for your KPI. To give you the closest prediction of the KPI, this model finds the coefficients that minimize squared errors based on independent variables included in the model. Marketing mix modeling most commonly uses linear regression, a form of predictive analysis that helps estimate all the values in the above equation. Once you have the model, you can predict your KPI value based on the coefficients in the model. The most common way to assess model performance is to compare actual sales to the predicted sales in that model. The closer the model predicts real-world performance, the better. Marketing mix models are never perfect, but they are useful. And the smaller the error, the more useful the model. For the exam, you receive the functional form of a model in Excel and should be able to calculate the output. Imagine that as the marketing team at Storks, a fictitious retailer, works on the budget they'd like to estimate how sales units would look if they had three variables: price, TVRs, and Facebook advertising impressions. Based on data from last year, they create a marketing mix model. Their baseline sales is 10,000. The coefficients in the equation show what a change in each variable means for the KPI, which is sales units. Sales units are equal to 10,000, 5,000 times price, plus 500 times TVRs, plus 4,000 times impressions. Now that they have this model, they hypothetically know that if prices increase by $1, sales units go down by 5,000. If TVRs increase by 1, sales units go by 500. 1 million more Facebook impressions mean 4,000 more sales. They can use this information to optimize their budget for next year. Of course, this is a simplified model. In reality, there would be more variables that affect their sales. While marketing mix model is a very popular and widely used tool, it has some limitations. It may struggle to capture incremental sales if the increase is minimal. It requires collaboration between modelers and the advertiser. Furthermore, it also often requires the advertiser to collaborate across their departments, such as pricing or distribution departments. Given the holistic nature of the models, data collection can also be a challenge, and any analysis is only as good its data inputs. It's also based on correlation rather than causation. Lastly, it can be time intensive to implement. There are 3 types of tests we discuss here: A/B tests, brand lift tests, and conversion lift tests. Let's explore when to use each and their different limitations. First is the A/B test. A/B tests enable you to test different versions of your ads against each other, so you can determine which elements achieve the best performance based on your current attribution settings. This is ideal for businesses who just want to learn which tactics work best, so they can optimize their future campaigns. In general, an A/B test works best for day-to-day tactical optimizations. You can test variables such as audience, creative, placement, delivery optimizations, budget structures, or campaign objectives. However, some A/B tests don't include control groups, only randomized test groups. In this case, they don't measure causality or the incremental value of the strategy. Here, the A/B test only identifies correlation, not causation. Randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, are experiments designed to measure causality. They include randomization of participants into mutually exclusive groups. One or more of these groups receive the treatment and they are therefore called the test group. Meanwhile, one or more don't receive the treatment, and we call these group control groups. The control provides a standard of comparison and can represent a standard practice, a placebo, or no treatment. Facebook offers 2 types of self-serve RCTs: brand lift test and conversion lift test. Brand lift tests measure brand lift, and conversion lift tests measure conversion lift. You can use a managed lift solution when business needs are more advanced and complex. Managed lifts offer a customizable setup, such as nested tests, multi-cell tests, flexible and custom questions, PowerPoint deliverables, and centralized coordination of test setup from a Facebook sales team. Alternatively, you can enhance and optimize your Facebook ads and use a Facebook marketing solutions provider to conduct your tests. This training primarily focuses on experiments to explore the fundamental concepts of each test. The results of your RCT rely on its statistical power. Statistical power is the ability of a test to detect an effect if the effect exists. Here's what can affect statistical power: reach and holdout percentage. We generally recommend you have a holdout of at least 20% of your audience. For conversion lift, the conversion rate. How many people do you expect to convert out of all of the people you reach? Budget. Do you have a sufficient overall spend to reach a higher percentage of your target audience? We recommend that you budget to reach 50% or more of your target audience. Lift percentage. How big of an effect are we likely to see? Altogether, this helps us determine if your test is likely to have significant campaign lift and if you need better evidence to help you make adjustments. The two ways to conduct lift tests we'll cover in this session is single cell and multi-cell. A single cell is a simple test, while a multi-test is a more complex. Single cell tests seek to answer the question: what is the incremental impact of the campaign? The difference in results between the test and control group, whether it's brand or conversion outcomes, is the incremental impact of the campaign. This gives you a baseline understanding of the incremental impact your campaign generates. Multi-cell lift tests seek to answer the question: which campaign strategy leads to greater incremental impact? Multi-cell tests are more complicated, but in their simplest form, you set up your campaigns with different treatment variables you want to test. The same way single-cell lift test measures incremental impact, multi-cell tests tell you which campaign generated the greatest incremental impact. The Axiom team implemented multiple measurement solutions last year. As we discuss the different scenarios Axiom encountered throughout the year, I want you to think about on your own which measurement approaches they used. Here's the first scenario. The Axiom marketing team ran brand awareness ads on TV and digital channels during sporting events. They had a goal to reach a broad audience at an efficient cost per person. Their hypothesis stated that TV delivers more efficient reach relative to the digital channels Axiom had already been using. In this case, cross-channel reach reporting was the measurement approach they used to test their hypothesis. In July, the Axiom team wanted to reduce their average CPA. At the time, they only ran ads on Facebook newsfeed, and they needed to confirm their hypothesis quickly. They hypothesized that the incorporation of Instagram stories as an additional placement would reduce their average CPA. Now, with this information, consider the measurement approach that they used to test their hypothesis. Take a moment to think about your answer. If you thought A/B test, then you're right. The Axion team ran ads on multiple channels, including Facebook. To assess the accuracy of their current attribution model, they wanted to measure the sales that their Facebook advertising generated. The team hypothesized that their Facebook advertising achieved $500,000 in incremental sales and a $50 cost per incremental purchase in the month of June. Take a moment to think, consider the measurement approach that they used to test their hypothesis. If you thought conversion lift test, you're right. A conversion lift test to measure the causal impact of their Facebook advertising would be an effective approach. Last one. The Axion team wanted to optimize spend across channels, which included TV, email, direct mail, Facebook, and other digital channels. They wanted to test their hypothesis that TV achieved a higher return on investment than direct mail, and they should then allocate more budget to TV in the following year. Rather than look at the impact of each channel in a silo, consider which measurement approach they might use. A marketing mix model. This helps them understand the effect each channel has on sales outcomes from previous years. Let's do an activity. The Axion team implemented multiple measurement solutions last year. This activity examines the use case and hypothesis the Axion team used. With those, you then determine the measurement approach the team used. Let's take a look at this exercise. A tour operator advertises on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The brand team is evaluating performance of these channels in Ads Manager and Google Analytics to determine how to allocate their increased budget for the upcoming season. They suspect the impact of Facebook platforms is overrepresented in Ads Manager and underrepresented in Google Analytics. How should the company measure the causal contribution of the Facebook platforms accurately? Option A, adopt a multi-touch attribution model for all platforms. B, use Ads Manager results to evaluate Facebook platforms. C, use Google Analytics to evaluate Facebook platforms. D, run an ad account level randomized control trial on Facebook. The correct answer is D. Run an ad account level randomized control trial on Facebook. Google Analytics can only show your correlated measures, whereas a randomized control trial can show you causal impact. An online fashion retailer wants to test the video views objective against the brand awareness objective. The goal is to see which objective generates better purchase intent among the target audience. Which method should the retailer use to achieve this? A multi-test conversion lift test to test video views versus brand awareness. B, an A/B test to measure video views versus brand awareness. C, a multi-cell brand lift test to test purchase intent with brand awareness versus video views. Or D, A/B test to measure estimated ad recall for each objective. The correct answer is C. Multi-cell brand lift test to test purchase intent with brand awareness versus video views. A brand lift test is the only way to poll for purchase intent, and it also ensures no contamination between two cells. Let's begin our last section of the day. Design a test. In this section, we discuss how to design a test to prove or disprove your hypothesis. We also go into greater depth on the requirements of each test. Now let's take a closer look at 3 tools you can use for experiments on our platform: A/B tests, brand lift tests, and conversion lift tests. When you design a test, it's important to first identify the KPIs and ensure it aligns with your business goal. As mentioned, A/B tests can help you understand which campaign or ad strategies work best. You can use these, for example, to compare the effectiveness of a product image to an image of people as they use that product. The KPI for an A/B test is the cost per result based on the last touch from Ads Manager with a click precedence model. A conversion lift test measures the incremental conversions your ads generate at either the account or campaign level. The KPI is the cost per conversion lift based on the conversion difference between the test and control groups. In other words, how many more conversions did your campaign lead and what was the cost of each additional conversion? A brand lift test measures lift by brand outcomes. For example, ad recall, awareness, or favorability. The KPI for a brand lift test is the cost per brand lift based on conversion difference between test and control group. A/B tests help you understand which campaign strategies work best and then make tactical optimizations. In an A/B test, your audience is divided into random, non-overlapping groups. This randomization helps ensure the test is fair and reduce the possibility that a confounding variable might skew the results. Each group sees ads that are identical except for the variable you want to test. This variable could be delivery optimization, placement, creative, or even the audience itself. The first group sees version A of your ad. The second group sees version B. The performance of each ad or ad set is measured against your campaign objective, and the best performing ad or ad sets wins. A/B tests work for the video views, reach, traffic, app installs, lead generation, or conversion ad objectives. They don't require a high budget compared to lift tests, and the recommended test duration is 3 to 14 days. This makes them great for quick, tactical, everyday optimizations. Let's walk through the A/B test setup checklist. Duration. Run the test for 1 to 2 conversion cycles or at least 2 weeks. For the budget, allocate equal budgets to both campaigns and ensure they are high enough to exit the learning phase. The absolute minimum weekly ad set budget must be equal to 50 times the one-day click CPA, and a conservative minimum weekly ad set budget must be equal to 100 times the average CPA. For the creative, include a prominent call to action in the ads as well as branding throughout each. Audience. To reduce the possibility of inflating the baseline, minimize audience overlaps with other campaigns or ad accounts. Dark period. Consider a pre or post-study media dark period to reduce chance of contamination. For the conversion events, track events that reflect your primary business goals along the marketing funnel. And for the edits, avoid making edits to campaign mid-test or ending the test early. Be prepared for 2 possible outcomes of the test. If the test doesn't declare a winner, evaluate your campaigns and decide if you should run the test again. Ask yourself, did you follow the best practices in the test setup checklist? If the test does declare a winner, implement the winning strategy and consider what else you'd like to test. A few things to remember. You should wait until the end of the study to evaluate the results. Also, any result greater than or equal to 90% is a reliable result. And the test and control groups combined need at least 100 converters before the tool can show your lift results. With a conversion lift test, you compare sales or conversion outcomes of people who have seen your ads with people who haven't. This comparison conveys the incremental, online, offline, and mobile app business your campaign has generated. A conversion lift test firstly randomly assigns people from a target audience to either a test group or a test control group. People in the test group have the chance to see an ad, whereas people in the control group don't. After the campaign ends, you can evaluate whether the group that saw the ad took action and therefore converted more than a group that didn't see it. The degree to which they did or didn't convert is the measure of how much the ad influenced conversions. Let's go through the conversion lift test setup checklist. The duration should run for 1 to 2 conversion cycles or at least 2 weeks. Again, the budget needs to be high enough to exit the learning phase. Remember to include a prominent call to action and branding throughout. Also, minimize audience overlap. If possible, have a pre or post-test media dark period. And make sure your conversion events reflect your primary goal And lastly, avoid making edits to the campaign mid-test. Here's an overview of what you can expect when you run a conversion lift test. The measurement period and your overall lift results, which shows the conversion lift percent, the conversion lift number, and the sales lift. The conversion percent shows the percent difference in conversions between people who did and did not have the opportunity to see your ads during the test. Lift in efficiency shows the lifts in CPC and return on ad spent. The CPC lift is cost of each additional conversion that the ads in this test cost. And the return on ad spent lift is the additional revenue generated for each dollar you spend on ads in this test. Your test and campaign details, and within that, the age and gender distribution. The test details section provides information on the behavior and actions of individuals in the test and control groups. A breakdown of the results by demographic. The breakdown by demographic section shows the conversion lift by age and gender, providing you with more information on which segments provide the most lift. If the results of your tests are both positive and statistically significant, you may want to continue to run the strategy, or you may want to scale it and increase the budget. You can also calibrate your attribution model to the one that most closely aligns with the lift results. This is also an opportune time to optimize your strategy and further A/B test different variables. If the results are flat or non-statistically significant, you may want to adjust the strategy and rerun the test. You should also reference the test setup checklist to confirm you follow the best practices for conversion lift tests. With a brand lift test, you measure brand impact by your full account or campaign strategy. A brand lift test first randomly assigns people from a target audience to either a test group or a control group. People in the test group have a chance to see an ad, whereas people in the control group don't. After the campaign ends, we deliver posts to both groups. The brand lift tool analyzes results from the post to measure key brand metrics. Let's go through the brand lift test setup checklist. The duration should run 4 to 6 weeks with a high enough budget to average 2 impressions per person per week. Remember to include a prominent call to action and branding throughout. Also, minimize audience overlap. If possible, have a pre or post-test media dark period. Use polling questions that reflect different stages of the funnel and avoid making edits to your campaign mid-test. When you create your test, you can create up to 3 poll questions for us to ask people in a target audience. The poll measures the effect the campaign is having on brand perception through questions about standard ad recall, standard brand awareness, abstract favorability, familiarity, recommendation, and action intent. Just as we shouldn't use proxies such as clicks or likes for brand metrics, we also shouldn't use proxies for sale metrics. Brand intent is a proxy for sales, and it can be a very challenging metric to use. Research has shown there's no strong correlation between intent to purchase and actual sales. If your client asks about sales, we therefore recommended you measure throughout our sales solutions. Remember, though, that lower funnel metrics can be harder to shift and it might take more time to make an impact. Let's look at 3 questions you can ask in a brand lift test and determine where in the funnel you can use one. Take a moment to write your answers in the chat. For the upper funnel, do you recall seeing an ad for the brand or product online or on mobile device in the last 2 days? This question works well for ad recall in the upper end of the funnel. For the mid-funnel, what's your opinion on the brand or the product? This works for the middle of the funnel, which focuses on favorability. And for the lower funnel, will you buy the brand or the product the next time you shop for this type of product? This question helps you determine the lower funnel intention. Here is an overview of the report output. We'll go into key aspects of these components afterwards. At the top, you have the measurement period for the test. Then you have the overall results, which include the brand lift percentage and cost per brand lift for this test. This also includes benchmarks for campaigns in your region and vertical. It's important to remember that the benchmark results are specific to either the country or the vertical, but not both. In this report, the results are compared to tests for the technology vertical in Asia Pacific. However, the information here is compared to all tests in Asia Pacific as well as to tests for the technology vertical worldwide. There are also breakdowns of the lift results by polling question. Brand lift is the number of people you reached with your campaign multiplied by your brand lift percent. In this case, 2.65 million times 11% equals 291,000 more people to give the desired response in the test group when compared to the control group. Cost per brand lift shows the estimated cost of each additional person who have the desired response in the test. Brand lift percent is a difference in the percent of people who submitted a desired response in the test versus the control group. The campaign results and creative overview are also included. Next, the results for the desired responses are organized by demographic results and respective test audience size. If the results of your test are both positive and statistically significant, you may want to continue to run your strategy, or you may want to scale it and increase the budget. If results are flat or not statistically significant, you may want to adjust the strategy and rerun the test. You should also reference the test setup checklist to confirm you followed the best practices for brand lift tests. A few things to note for your brand lift test. If possible, wait until the end of the test to evaluate the results. Also, anything above 90% is a reliable result. Lastly, each polling question needs at least 250 responses before we can show you your lift results. Let's check this question. To promote a new product, a large sneaker brand plans to launch a national TV campaign with an online campaign across a few digital platforms, including Facebook. The TV campaign runs through April. The Facebook campaign starts the second week of April and ends the first week of May. The brand team wants to determine the impact of Facebook in addition to other media. It wants to know if the national TV exposure might contaminate a brand lift test on Facebook because both campaigns target people ages 18 to 34. How could the national TV campaign interact with the brand lift test on Facebook? Let's check the options. A. Some of the people in the brand lift control group might see the ads on TV, which would lead to an underestimation of the incremental impact of the Facebook campaign. B. Some of the people in the brand lift control group might see the ads on TV, which would lead to an overestimation of the incremental impact of the Facebook campaign. C. TV exposure can contaminate the test because the audiences the TV and digital platforms reach are different. Or D. TV exposure can contaminate the test because the brand lift tests use randomized controlled trial methodology. The correct answer here is D. TV exposure can contaminate the test because the brand lift test uses randomized controlled trial methodology. The test and control groups are assigned randomly, so there is an equal opportunity for each of them to have seen the TV ads. Here's 3 key things to remember. Without a well-formed hypothesis, any experiment or data analysis lacks the necessary guidelines to be useful and actionable. Your hypothesis should relate to your primary business goal. Form a strong hypothesis that answers the who, what, where, when, and why. From there, you can formulate a test hypothesis, which is an if/then statement that considers how a change in a variable can influence an outcome. Also, with a test hypothesis in place, your next step is to determine the measurement approach that proves or disproves that hypothesis. We covered cross-channel reach reporting, Facebook attribution, A/B test, marketing mix model, and randomized controlled trials. There are more measurement approaches we didn't cover, and we encourage you to review the Marketing Science Study Guide to further your education. Lastly, when you design a test, it's important to first identify the KPIs for each test and ensure they align with your business goal. We also reviewed each test setup checklist and their potential outcomes. If you'd like to learn more, we invite you to visit Facebook Blueprint to take more free online courses or to get certified. We've developed a custom learning path with courses relevant to creative agencies, and you can access them with these links. You also find this in your handout document. That concludes our session for today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the material helpful. Thank you so much and take care.